thank you so much for coming, and it's such a beautiful night for this. I'm so glad. And it's good to see people in person. Just a little bit about Roz. Roz Dimon is an American artist who draws and paints in all media. Originally from the South, she graduated from the Lamar Dodd School of Art at the University of Georgia and moved to New York City in 1981. Her subject matter is American culture, secular and sacred. An early pioneer in the field of digital art, she invented a process for interactive art and storytelling called a Dimonscape. These works are in major museums, including our own Havens House next door at the Shelter Island Historical Society. She is a member of the Carter Burden Gallery in New York City and on the board of a rising movement called techspressionism.com. Roz is looking for nonprofit venues where this exhibit might travel alongside sponsorship. Please be in touch with her if you have any ideas about this or wish to collaborate. And welcome, Roz Dimon.
I really love that the Lincolns are starting out here in this island home that I love so much. Yes, originally from New York many years, but my husband James, who's right here, James Dawson, and I have been out here, and actually we're fully permanent here for the first time in the last couple of years, and we just love this place and the community it engenders. And to get to the point of what this whole series really is about is this winter, when our nation was just so, I think we're still divided actually, but there was just so much rancor and hatred and vitriol going on in the country. And as an artist, I wasn't really quite sure how I was going to respond to this. I was feeling a lot of emotions, and I stumbled upon this incredible portrait of Abraham Lincoln by Andrew Gardner, 1863. It's an incredible face. And I have not done a portrait in years. I've been working digitally, really by accident, since I arrived in New York. I can barely operate a toaster, but honestly, as an artist, it's true though. You don't always get into things. I would say just listen to the interruptions in your life, because that was the biggest interruption in my life. I mean, I love drawing in oils, and I was classically trained and studied in Italy, and I love drawing and painting in the kind of traditional sense. But arriving, I'm diverting a little bit here, but to give you background, my brush just started filling with pixels and squares in the 1980s, and that led me to working in digital media from the very beginning, and I've continued to do it. So anyway, getting back to this winter, I was trying to figure out what would be my response to all this going on. And I saw this face, and to the point I was making, I haven't done a portrait since I did some oil portraits of my mother and some other people in Atlanta, Georgia, called Talking Heads, where I had tape recorders under the portraits. And I guess even then technology was coming in, because people said, have you been to that show? And you go in and all the paintings are talking before the people are even there. And but it wasn't really about technology for me. It is about technology. But for me, it's about trying to make a closer connection with you, and as an artist with other people, using the means we have today. So this face, I looked at this face, and I do call it my affair with Abraham Lincoln. And my husband seems to be okay with that. He said, well, he's dead, so it's fine. But I'm kind of kidding. But I really did fall in love with this face. I mean, because this face is like a battlefield, and I felt like here was a face and a man who kept the Union together during such a disruptive, difficult period of the Civil War. And we're kind of in a Civil War again, and maybe we've always stayed there a little bit. But the thing that was so compelling about his face is all the different things that you see in it, and the suffering and the steadfastness, and the fact that he did keep the Union together. And one of the books that I was reading recently spoke about that kind of sacrifice. And you look at his face, and he did say, Lincoln said something to the effect that, some things of purpose drive you to do things, and it might even destroy your very soul in doing it. But he did it. And that face, to me, sort of represents that. So I just started drawing this face. And I did 18 more, actually. Not every single piece is in this collection. But every afternoon, I would start looking at this portrait, and I would, this photo, I would just have it out. And I I work this way. I mean, people go, what is digital art? You know, I don't have my computer here, but I draw with this pen and this tablet right here. And this pen feels my pressure. It feels my pressure. And it's just as emotionally responsive to me as when I'm drawing with a paintbrush and oils. So it's, you know, it's confusing right now for people because you can do a painting and make a digital print. That's one way you can use digital. But there are quite a few of us, and some of my friends who've been in the whole digitality scene are coming from other states, and I'm so glad they're here tonight. Understand that some of us were responding to this and saying, we want to draw with that medium that is representative of these times. I mean, we all want to take our computers and throw them out the window, and I do too. But it is the medium of our time, and I can draw with thousands of colors and get different sort of emotional impact. And the drawings in there, 11 of them are, hope I add this up right, 11 are digital drawings. And yet at the same time, I was just so in love with the face. It wasn't really about necessarily doing them even digitally anymore. I just started pulling out paper and saying, oh, I think I'll take charcoal and really try to capture this tonight just with charcoal. Or I'm going to take out all my Conti crayon and my pen and ink. And it got me back into traditional media that I really haven't been in for a while. So it's kind of an interesting selection and series in that it's one face. They all look different. And you're welcome to go in and see the show after we talk. I'm going to try to keep this short just so we can discuss a little bit about the series and I can talk to questions. But each one is really, really different. They're really expressive. I'm not looking at that and trying to make it look just like Abraham Lincoln. I'm just feeling this empathy with his face and trying to capture the emotion and the sadness and the sorrow of his eyes and the kind of contradiction. And they all have names, and I do have a sheet of paper in there that lists headlines that were going on each day when I did these pieces. And it doesn't mean that that particular piece went to that headline. It just is a little bit of context for people to understand what was going on in our world at that time and in our capital. And it's really, I think the larger point I'm trying to convey through art is, you know, whether someone's Republican or Democrat, you know, when I look at this face and look at the complexity of this face and think of friends I love and people who don't necessarily vote the way I do, I mean, every character is complicated. Individuals are complicated, and I just want us to get into more of a dialogue about that, maybe through this series. You know, these pieces, I sometimes talk to other people about how I want to bring hope through my art. And it doesn't mean I don't want to disrupt and make people think, but I do want to inspire, and I want to bring people to try to come together. I mean, I think the early cave paintings on the wall, sure, they're about maybe terrifying animals, but I also think they were about awe and about how we kill the animal, but they live with each other. I mean, it's like the early shamans in a way, and I feel that all people could be shamans. I mean, it's not just artists, but I think that is something I feel deeply, and I'm also a religious person, as some people here know, and I'm not afraid of dialogue and debate. And I think it's fine to debate about these Lincolns too, because I don't see him one way, even though I lean to the blue, as some of my friends know. But for me, as an artist and as a human being, for me, the sparks fly in the center, and that's where it happens. And maybe we can think about that a little more. We can be a little more open with one another and think, oh, they did that, so I hate them. He was interesting, you know. He was a politician. I mean, some people have said, well, Roz, as you know, Lincoln was a racist. Well, he grew up in a racist nation. He was, you know, and I personally feel that the way we measure the character of a man or a woman is not necessarily what they were born or what they did, but in the early days, but what they became, how they changed. I mean, even George W. Bush, he was never my favorite, but you know what? I love the fact that we went into recovery. I mean, he changed. I mean, these are hard things to do. So Lincoln changed, and he kept things together. What else do I want to mention? I do want to say that yes, James?
Why is the number one in the series?
Number one was a rather abstract response to Lincoln, and it wasn't quite as developed as the others, but I think that I'm probably going to put number one in because everybody's asking me where's number one. And I do have a small picture of it, and it's in the exhibit that you can see. Also, number 6 is missing, and we just had a little problem printing number 6, and number 6 is coming. And the show has been extended through August, so I'm really pleased that that's happening. And I will be quiet soon. But I did want to say I'm very pleased that a couple of the pieces have been purchased, and I've asked the people if they mind that it travels under the collection of, and they've said that's fine, and I really appreciate that. But 11 of them are digital drawings, and there is an animated video going on in the exhibition that was done by my friend Peter Grossman, who's in the back seat back here, and I've worked with Peter a long time. And Peter made this really lovely video that shows one of the drawings of my Lincoln being coming up one at a time, and John Mark Beatty, who also, I work with a small team really virtually. We don't work together in situ, but on Zoom. It shows a Lincoln being drawn one mark at a time, a digital Lincoln, of which there are 11. But you can see all the marks coming up, and when you draw on paper, you can't go back really and experience that unless you take a video of the artist doing that. But in this case, it just shows the power of the digital medium and what you can do with it. So the digital drawings are small editions of 20, and the larger drawings are, of course, one of a kind. And I'm very, very excited about this series, and I hope it'll inspire you, and I hope after we talk and discuss this a little bit more that you will go in and take a look. And I would love to hear from people about where this might travel and get sponsorship, because this is for me an offering, and I want this to travel, and I want it to create dialogue. And art can sometimes do that in a way where, words don't, where people talk about things in a different way. Greg, hi.
Hey, Roz.
Greg Garvey, another digerati from the days of yore. Very, very talented digital artist.
So a question I will ask you in person, but I'll ask you now. As you executed each one, and you finished one, and then you moved to the next, what did you look at from the previous that you decided, I'm going to investigate this, I'm going to change this, and what motivated them? Because you have a series.
Yeah.
And so it's like theme and variations. So can you give us a little bit of insight, whether it was different gestures or different shading, value scales, what was driving?
That's a great question. I mean, honestly, I just couldn't get enough of this guy's face, and after I did one drawing, I just thought, I really have to go back to that face again tomorrow. But I would know when the drawing was done. The diamondscapes I do are like one image of millions of images in them, that they're more like novels, I would say. And I have one at the Havens house if you haven't been there. But these I feel are more like poems. So I go after something, I sort of know when it's done, and yet in digital you can always undo. So it can be very confusing for people who don't know where they're going. But most of the pieces, I did not look back. I would just put them on a table, not look at them, and I would do a different one the next night and just keep going after that face. But there are two in the series that do sort of play off each other, and it's number 17 and number 17 plus, and it's right around the time of the inauguration. And you'll see in every single piece, Lincoln has his bow tie, very iconic part of the series and of this man. But there is a Lincoln. It's a black and white Lincoln. All of these are black and white, but 17 plus is
They're
a blue
not all
Lincoln.
black.
What?
There's a blue one.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh.
It's great to have your husband to help. But anyway, he does help. He's wonderful, actually. He's great. But in your case, to what you're asking, I actually took the black and white because I could digitally, and I felt like I wanted to change it a little after the inauguration. But it wasn't just about going blue or democratic. It was also about blue and sorrow. And so it can be interpreted a lot of different ways. But it's called My Bow Tie's Gone Blue. And I did actually, because I am also online a lot and talking to other young digital artists, as well as people I've known a long time like Greg, and working with Texpressionism and my gallery, I just put it out to everybody and said, look, if you have a little blue, something blue that you'd like to put in the bow tie, send me your image and I'll put it in the bow tie. So when you look at that particular Lincoln, on Instagram I cite every single artist. In this piece I haven't done that. but it's very small. But it was really an exciting sort of collaborative project, of which Gail Levin, noted art historian, who's here tonight. I'm so glad she's here, and also talented artist. She sent me one of her images, and so Gail's in there, and I'm not sure. Anna Fitzgerald, great friend and creative spirit, sent me one of hers. So when you look in there, there's 16 different Lincolns in there for the 16th president. So yeah, does that help a little? Those are the only two that really
Within
rip.
the bow tie, I don't understand.
They all have a bow tie.
But these images were in that one.
They're all in that bow tie. Yeah, I can take in when you're working digitally, you can take other images and place them inside your images. So it's a little bit more like what I call my diamondscapes, where I'm doing a large image of multiple images, but I'm still using my brush and deciding where does the color go, where does the form go, and the shape. And I think that's a new rising visual language that is going to bring a lot of understanding to where we are today. Peter.
So, you said there are headlines or pieces of news that are happening that day. Did that affect our drawing of that Lincoln that day as opposed to
Probably, but I listen to different headlines. Yeah, I think so, but I think larger than that, the only reason I actually printed the headlines is just to kind of remind us of what was going on at that time and when did these drawings occur. It's not like they're really linked to that headline in particular. I mean, I drew from CNN and MSNBC and Fox News, but it was more the larger thing that was going on in our country that I was really responding to day after day after day. Yeah. Hi, Nancy.
You said that you put your drawing down, and did you literally not look at it from the day before?
Oh no, I would look at it. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
I think when you
because you see it differently the next morning.
oh yeah, absolutely. You see it differently the next day and the next day and the next. And yeah, no, I would keep looking at it. And I did some, of course, that I didn't keep. I'd tear it up or start over. But to that point, though, when I hung this show, because it came out of me, I've never had a series kind of come up out of me like an eruption like this over such a short period of time and so many pieces about one face. So when I hung this show, and Shelter Island Library was so gracious to say, because people didn't know about COVID, what was happening, they said, yes, we'd love for you to be our first show this summer. I had to really hustle and get 18 pieces framed. So, and I hadn't really seen them all, and I hung them up, and then I had to go and visit a relative, and I felt like a mother, like looking at their children, a little like, oh, and I felt the strength. I really do feel the strength of this series. I mean, sometimes when you do art, it's I don't know. I think there's some other power working through you. For me, I don't know. Karen cares. She's another artist here in the audience and part of our poetry group that I love. But she and I have talked about the fact that when you work, you're sometimes transported to some other place, and you look at the piece later and you don't always really know quite how it happened. I mean, obviously you have to hone your skills, but
I have a question, Roz.
yeah.
As you got into this project, did you read a lot of biographies about Lincoln?
I'm reading one right now, The Burlingame. It's supposed to be the essential Lincoln. I'm in volume 1, and it's just got every iota of data. So I'm reading it carefully though, and what's impressing me the most is, as a young person, how much he, even with animals, I mean, he was a hard, rough pioneer lifestyle. He grew up very poor, and he had such a passion for or maybe not passion, but empathy for others and a sense of justice for people. And when they asked him what was his goal when he started becoming a politician, he said, "What is your goal?" And he said, "My largest goal is to be esteemed by my fellow man." He just had words that he made his own playbook. He was really quite unique. But he was also very puritanical in ways, and there's a lot of complexity to him. Very smart, could memorize everything, and very clever and very funny, and was of his time. And I'm sort of in the early parts of it. Yeah, I'm reading that, and I also have read, I can't remember who wrote it, it's more about the spiritual kind of side of Lincoln. And he really wasn't, from what people can tell, religious himself. But, and I want to say for myself, some of my friends know this, but I'm an ordained interfaith minister. I come from a Jesus place, but I'm so interested in all religion, and in even atheism. What drives people? What is that thing that we're seeking and searching for? And I think all the religions kind of They have different things, but they're all fascinating to me. But the interesting thing about Lincoln is that that people have said, who've written about him, have said that it's not that he was religious, but that he thought about religion. He thought about it, and he used it as a politician. He used it, but a lot of things he thought in the Bible were a bit of malarkey, and you know, that can be debated too. But he's an interesting person. You could probably tell me more, but you know, I'm waiting to hear more. Yeah, I'm doing more research into him. He's pretty fascinating, and this he has had so.
The Ken Burns film that they did on Lincoln had a lot of photographs of him in that documentary.
Oh, I should look at that. Yeah, that sounds great.
Any other portraits coming up?
Well, you know, when I picked out Lincoln, I also have a portrait of Eleanor Roosevelt, and she keeps looking at me. So I don't know, you know, I might go after her. She's pretty awesome herself. Yeah, thanks. Does anybody else have any other questions? Or, yeah, Marion?
How long did it take you, Roz, from start to finish when you did your first one and when you did your last one?
I think my first one was December 20th, 1920. I mean 2020, where am I? 2020, yeah. And thank you, really. And the last one, I really actually wasn't going to do another one, but then someone said, Roz, you've been doing these Lincolns, and a few people like Carolyn, who's a friend of mine in here, who owns one of the Lincolns, actually said, you know, it's his birthday, Roz. We should at least do him on his birthday. I think that was February 12th, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I went, well, okay, and so that was my kind of my last one. It's a little more abstract, but so it was from December 20th, 2020 to February 12th, 2021, and then I was done. That was the series. I knew I wasn't going to do any more.
But that's a lot of work in a short time.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
How did you know?
What's that?
How did you know?
How did I know I was done? I'm not sure, Gail. I just knew. So that, you know, with series, you kind of take them to the place where they just can't go anymore, and yet actually, I don't know. I'm still really interested in his face. It just cannot be captured enough. You know, he's so amazing. But I did feel I just felt, I don't know, I'm not sure, but I felt it was done, that the series was done. I mean, maybe a different series and a different approach, but for that series, I just felt it was. And as you pointed out, having done a catalog for another one of my exhibitions, the guns, Gail pointed out the fact that I had already kind of had an association with Lincoln because I did a series of guns that came out of my artifacts series. And all of my work is about America. I mean, whether it's artifacts, it's pop culture, it's Wall Street, it's Jesus, it's, you know, all sorts of things. But the guns, I had done a gun, and it was called, it was the gun that shot Abraham Lincoln. And I was interested in famous guns. And guns are beautiful, evil little creatures, you know. And it's funny, people go, Roz, you're drawing guns, you know. But you know what? People were fascinated with them. Everyone had a gun story. People came in, yes, I'm a minister, but I carry a gun. You know, I mean, I was like, whoa. I mean, it was really fascinating to me what came out of people about guns. And like, well, I hate guns, but let me just show you this 22 I have. I was like, you know, and I had stories from people. And, you know, the Lincolns have stories too. So they do sort of link in, but so, yeah. But, yeah, hi, Penny.
I was watching as this series was going on and posting it. So I'm wondering, was it a way to work through the horrors, or I mean, what we were going through, and then there was an end, and you know, sometimes it feels like wow, they went together, and was there a way for you to just sort of stay sane?
Oh yeah, I think so. I mean, you know, I think if you know, I was born able to draw. I got it from my grandparents. I mean, you have to always be practicing, but that was just something I received. And it's wonderful to be able to draw, but you know, it's that thing in an artist where you have to, you must, it has to come out. It's very cathartic. Oh yeah, it's like I mean, Picasso once said, you know, I'm not really alive unless I'm painting the scene I'm looking at. And sometimes you do have to take a breather, but you know, it just was so cathartic for me that I could express and feel sad and feel, you know, all these different emotions I felt in watching what was going on. And so it was, yeah, it was very, very cathartic for me, I must say. Yeah. So, Thank you so much, all of you. Oh, yeah, hi Barbara. I mean, it's like a little community here, isn't it? We all know each other.
Yeah,
It's a great one.
What comes to mind right now is that, the fact that you were drawn to Lincoln at this moment. And Lincoln was, sort of larger than life in a lot of ways. And he managed the country through its, most horrendous crisis. And now we're in another horrendous crisis that we do not know the outcome to yet,
Right.
or what's going to happen. But with a lot of suffering and pain, and not sort of fully resolved, but enough resolved so that we could carry on, he was able to move us forward. And so it's just making a lot of sense to me why the picture of Lincoln, the portrait, would come to you at that moment. And I can see how hopeful that, I mean, it's hopeful to a degree because the Civil War was hopeful to a degree.
Thank you. Now that was beautifully put. There's something about him. Resolute comes to mind. You look at his eyes, and he's just going to do it. He's going to do it, and you look at his wrinkles and the suffering and he's had joy too. But this one was he took that bit and he did it. And the word sacrifice comes to mind, and we don't hear that much. That our political servants do. And I don't know. It made me take a deeper look, and I hope all of us do, at each other. I mean, it just can't be as simple as you're that and you're this. I mean, you do have to take positions, but I would just ask us to look deeper, to your point. And he did things that were politically expedient to keep the country together. And in reading things, it's been fascinating. I've learned a lot of things, like, it was, of course I knew that it was not just slavery, but economics that was at the issue here. But there were states, like in Indiana, they didn't even allow free slaves to come in because, the farmers were afraid that they were great workers and that it was hard to be a farmer. And Lincoln had been a farmer, and they liked Lincoln because he grew up, he really had a hard life, very hard life. He's just so brilliant. He kept studying all the time and somehow became a lawyer, without ever really having too much formal training. But, you look at all the different economic reasons and what was going on in the country, which is still going on kind of now. I mean, some people are feeling just so left out of the fabric here, either through lack of education or through, just people ignoring them. Who knows why? There are a lot of different factors, but I think we need to listen to all of them. I mean, I'm learning a lot just from his face. I'm going and reading more and seeing different positions. I mean, there were a lot of emancipated laws that were already enacted, but they really weren't enforced, and some of them still aren't. So it's been a really revealing time doing this series. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you to the library, and I just wanted to invite all of you. Thank you so much. Please go in and take a look. Be safe, wear your mask, don't wear your mask, whatever works for you. There's a little bit of a reception that Jocelyn has put together, and please just be comfortable and enjoy the exhibit, and I'll be around, and I'd be happy to answer questions. And thank you all. Thank you.